Kia ora, talefa, namaste, haere mai, and big it up to the man dem around Aotearoa and the girl dem. I was going to do like an LEG Medjuli, but they're not Medjuli, they're the powerful Wahine, as well as the powerful man dem of Aotearoa. Big it up to yourself. We are here from the Niche Cache for the Niche Cache Variety Show, where we just dabble. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, mix and match. A little bit of kai, a little bit of kai moana, a little bit of kumara, potato, avocado, tomato, and whatever the fuck else we want to do, because we are the Niche Cache and we are here to dissect and discuss Aotearoa sporting matters. Plenty of cool stuff scheduled in for this week's variety show. Yesterday, we recorded our Patreon podcast, as well as a couple of clips that are on the YouTube page right now. We took out clips about Ali Riley and Abby Erceg playing football in the US of A, as well as our White Ferns versus England reaction. So those are from the Patreon podcast. And we also went deep into cricket grounds in Aotearoa and just the vibe from various cricket grounds, as well as an update from the wildcard on the All Whites. And they just played overnight as well. Wildcard win overnight.
Yeah, beat Fiji pretty comprehensively, 4-0. Mr. Christopher Grant Wood with a double there. Eli Just got a goal. Clayton Lewis got a late penalty. So there you go. Good impressive performance from him too.
Did you give old Roy Krishna a big old malo?
Yeah, he got shut out of the game a lot, to be fair. There's the always sort of controlled the midfield this time, and he didn't get a lot to do. He did get booked at one point for dissent, arguing a yellow card that had been given to one of his teammates. I'm gonna go back and get my screenshots from the game as well. And one of them was him hanging out afterwards, because I always find it interesting, like who the players that you know are talking to after the game. And I think Ollie Sale was popping up there. I think he might have been talking to Tommy Smith as well, which is curious one, but I'm sure there are a couple Phoenix boys lining up to say good day. Clayton Lewis was one for sure.
Shout out Roy. So shout out to the Patreon podcast as well. Best way to support the Niche Cache and all our content is on Patreon, patreon.com/our Niche Cache, EL Niche Cache, bit of a Spanish twist there with the English Niche Cache as well. For those who don't understand, EL Niche Cache. Get an extra podcast every week, as well as the good vibes of just supporting us and, to be honest, making all this possible. So big it up to the Patreon whānau and anyone else listening. The best way to support our content right now is via Patreon, patreon.com/our Niche Cache. Every Monday and Friday, we also deliver an email banger, which is quickly becoming mandatory reading, if we can say so ourselves, because we write it. So hopefully it's mandatory reading for you. Every Monday and Friday evening, we send out our email dispatch with various Kiwi sporting topics. Yesterday, I updated Dan Hooker's UFC loss, as well as a quick note on BJ Bland, who was fighting in the PFL, had some niggly drama similar to Hooker, had a loss. So it was a bit of a bummer. But every Monday and Friday, we deliver out of the box Kiwi sporting insights, just little things, little bits and pieces that are all relevant, all up to date, all current events with what is happening in Aotearoa sport, as well as all the Niche Cache content. So podcasts, links to all our yarns, it's all there in the email dispatch every Monday and Friday evening. Sign up the nichecache.substack.com, enter your email address, all done. Easy mahi. And then you don't have to go on social media. Like, who the fuck, like, we're trying to move away from social media. So if you just have your email, then you just get the Niche Cache delivered to you, straight to you twice a week, and you don't need to be scrolling, because we're trying to, ground ourselves and uplift ourselves. And I guess it's kind of avant-garde to be a bit fuck social media, but we're just trying to get back to basics, get in tune with the earth and Aotearoa. So shout out to the email dispatch every Monday and Friday, thenichecache.substack.com. And of course, we're always writing about Aotearoa sport at www.theniche-cache.com. Big White Ferns debrief yarn. Wildcard will have his flying Kiwis update tonight, as well as various all whites yarns. And I mean, there's a novel of Aotearoa sporting content live on the website www.theniche or dot, can't forget the dots these days, .theniche-case.com. Wildcard, we begin with mindfulness. Serve it up to us when you're ready.
Alrighty. He or she, I suppose, the proverbial he who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. Very intelligent fella said that one, Mr. Albert Einstein.
Can you repeat it, please?
He who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe is as good as dead. His eyes are closed.
I interpret that as everyone needs to take time to just be just to slow down, right? Because then you're then
smell the roses, you know.
Yeah, and then you're stepping into wonder. Sorry, the world is wonderful, and you start to realize that when you actually slow down and you step away from social media, you step away from the bullshit that you're dealing with wherever else, you step away from all the bad energy that circulates on planet Earth, you just got to step away from it. And especially in Aotearoa, there's all these little park up spots where you can just sit there and stare at the ocean. You can get out in the bush. You can go down to your local park, because what do you know, in Aotearoa, got a fucking lot of local parks that you can get out and slow down and admire the world around you. And then you get into some Einstein vibes. Eh? So you're saying if I go out and I just enjoy a bit of downtime, I'm tapping into some Einstein energy. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, just to pause and wonder, to stand wrapped in awe. It's all I don't know, relatively self-explanatory, but it's one of those things that I think is probably easier said than done. It's maybe something you need to not necessarily make time for, but just because when the moments arise, you don't necessarily go out and be I'm going to look for something amazing. Because often these things strike you when you're not expecting them, but just being open to that, open to the possibility and ready to be greasing the wheels, being ready to be to be struck down in awe and wonder, that kind of thing, just to embrace it when it comes along, because there are a lot of wonderful things about the world. Wonderful is a great word to wonderful, full of wonder, and awesome, some awe, I guess. But yeah, you just got to be open to the experience, and then those experiences are just going to come endlessly. You're going to find them everywhere once you get into that state of mind.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about going out and seeking it.
Yeah,
all it's about is just making the space for that to come to you. Key point. Let's get the sporting stuff underway here, Wildcard. Top spot, sometimes a hot take, sometimes a poem, sometimes just something crazy that we have to share with our listeners. What do you got in this elevated primetime pocket of the variety show?
Well, I'm definitely full of wonder at the fact that we start recording a podcast and suddenly the torrential rain comes down, leaking into my microphone. It's a natural wonder. But my hot take is about Chris Wood, and I mentioned before that he scored a couple goals against Fiji. That actually makes him the all-time leading goal scorer for the All Whites. Surpasses Vaughan Coveney's record of 29. Chris Wood now has 20. He equaled him and went past him in the same game. Probably should have got a lot further past him, actually. He could have scored 6 goals with the chances that he had. But yeah, Chris Wood, all-time leading All Whites goal scorer. Cool. There's no one more deserving, and cannot wait to see him just extend that record so far that nobody can catch him for at least 20 years. As far as I'm concerned, why not take it all the way to 50 goals or even beyond for the All Whites? But the real record, because Chris Wood becoming the all-time leading scorer for the All Whites was kind of inevitable. Like not just when he's 1 goal behind Vonkovny, but that's been inevitable for at least 5 years. We know he's going to have gotten to this point at some stage. Would have got there earlier if the All Whites had played more regularly. The real record we ought to be focusing on with Chris Wood is the all-time All Whites appearance record. Now, Ivan Visolic holds that one with 88 caps. Chris Wood is already fourth all-time with 62 caps, 26 games shy of catching Visolic. Chris Wood is 30 years old. Let's say he plays a couple more games in this OFC stuff. This is even accounting for him being rested for one of them. Let's say he gets another game in the Intercontinental Playoff. Let's say we win that Intercontinental Playoff and make the World Cup. 3 more games there at the World Cup. There are limited chances because of the timing of that World Cup for friendlies throughout the rest of the year, but we'll assume he gets, like, let's say 2 other games 2 other friendly games before the end of the year. That is a conservative and also optimistic way in which he might reach 70 before the end of this year. He is young enough to have a whole other World Cup cycle, and maybe even 2 if he really wants to go for it. Play until he's like 38 or something. He's got a game that doesn't rely on pace or speed or anything like that, so he could, injuries permitting. He plays whenever he's available, and he's available whenever he's fit. So why wouldn't he catch Ivan Visolic? Why wouldn't he even potentially go further and possibly as far as like 100 caps? 100 caps and 50 goals. Go for it. Go for it, Mr. Woodsman. Why not?
Multi order to Chris Wood. My hot take wildcard is that Deine Mariner is the funkiest Kiwi-NRL thing right now, which is a bit of a hot take for a dude who's not actually in the NRL. But this sums up kind of this is a personal opinion and a personal exploration of my sporting mind, because in the NRL, especially Kiwi-NRL, it's just a bit of a grind right now. We're looking for patterns to emerge, really serious trends to settle down, as well as other sports to fuck off, so I can actually watch NRL games. Mad respect to those other sports. Fantastic Women's World Cup, fantastic end of the cricket season. A lot of great stuff is happening that is keeping me, it's the start of the NRL season. It's not the end of the NRL season, so you got to keep your priorities in order here. That is to say, the Kiwi-NRL stuff, the funky Kiwi-NRL stuff at the NRL level, it needs time to settle. And in the background, we have Deine Mariner continuing to rise through the Australian ranks. And I'm always cautious about celebrating and bigging upping young men and women who are on their journey. We usually deal with the top level stuff just because it's far more rational, it's far more sensible to deal with the people who have actually made it to that level instead of pondering, are they going to do it? Are they not? Well, let's just focus our energy on the top dogs. But Deine Mariner is a fantastic talent himself. He scored 4 tries on debut in reserve grade. Last year, he was playing in schoolboy footy and under 18s. Round 1 this year, he's playing reserve grade against grown blokes, and he scores 4 tries. The only tries his team scored in their loss to Burleigh. One of which was an interesting play where they had a midfield scrum. All the players were on the left of the scrum. Deine Mariner was on the right of the scrum. And this growing blokes footy team, their set play was give it to Deine Mariner and let him just burn some dude. Utterly ridiculous. He's in the Broncos system. Slight chance he might make his debut for the Broncos this year. Hopefully he just gets time to settle in reserve grade. The reason Deine Mariner is the funkiest Kiwi-NRL player, or the funkiest Kiwi-NRL thing right now, is because it tells the wider story of the Kiwi-NRL journey. There's a lot of other lads who haven't had the swift rise that Deine Mariner has had. However, every little box is being ticked. Every little juncture is being reached. Every checkpoint is being achieved, and they are quickly rising through various Australian ranks. And this all tells me, whether it is the Kiwi-NRL debutants, whether it is a swift riser, a top-end talent like Deine Mariner, or whether it is all these other Kiwi-NRL journeys, players on their respective journeys, whatever it is it all comes together to tell me that Kiwi-NRL talent is real. The numbers are high, the quality is high, and we have already seen this Kiwi-NRL takeover seep into the NRL. And through Deine Mariner's kind of career arc to this point, we are seeing that the Kiwi-NRL takeover is only going north. It's only going up, and it's only getting better. So shout out to Deine Mariner. Fantastic individual talent who I'm really fascinated to follow and track throughout the season, mainly in reserve grade. But also big it up to everyone else involved in Kiwi-NRL talent with NRL clubs, whether it's the Warriors, whether it's all these other NRL clubs. The Kiwi-NRL takeover continues to reach greater heights every year, to be honest, every month, and it's all there within the story of Deine Mariner. So shout out, shout out. Let's get statistical here, wildcard. And sometimes I refer to it as the vitamin statistics, some numbers to help tell a story. I think we might have to rename it to Steve-O Stats, because you just keep throwing out these Steven Adams stats in the stats segment. I'm all here for it. Sure, the listeners are here for it as well. So what do you got for Steve-O Stats this week?
Yeah, it's that time of the season. Steve-O Stats, Steve-O Stat times. Now, it goes without saying that Steven Adams is a magnificent offensive rebounder, right? He's the best in the business. We've already established that recent seasons, he's been one of the best. Now he's the very best. He leads the league in offensive rebounds per game, offensive rebounds in total, offensive rebound percentage, and it's not even really close on any of those counts either. Therefore, we have to take this a step further. We have to start looking beyond this season for some context. Now, with 314 total offensive boards, 10 games to play, it's a long way off Moses Malone's all-time record of 587 offensive rebounds with the Houston Rockets in 1978-79. The problem here being, when you start comparing him to guys from different eras, being that big men these days just do not get the rebounds at the same capacity during the three-point era that they used to. Because, like, you think people shooting from further away, ball hits the rim, you miss, it bounces further away as well. You get guards who get a lot more rebounds than they used to. You get big men who get a lot less, a lot fewer rebounds than they used to. Okay, then how about since 2000? Then we start cooking with gas here, because prime Andre Drummond, which is a weird thing to say about a dude who's actually a month younger than Steven Adams, he's the main man there. He's the only bloke to have hauled in over 400 offensive rebounds in a season since the millennium. He's actually done it twice, plus he had 399 in another season. Grizzlies Adams is only on pace for around about 350 if he keeps up his current thing over the last sort of eighth of the season. Which actually isn't even close to his own personal best. He got, I think, 392 in 1 year with OKC, and he also had one in the 380s with OKC. However, if he does get to 350, that would be a third season in his career with 350 plus offensive rebounds, which would be pretty amazing. Drummond's done that 5 times since the millennium, and nobody else has done it more than once. Like, nobody else has done it more than once since 2000, other than Drummond and Adams. And where this gets especially funky is when you start considering that, like, the reason he got so many more in OKC when he didn't lead the league in those stats, Andre Drummond was the main reason for that. But the reason on Adams, in terms of Adams's totals, is that he's playing about half a quarter less per night than he did in OKC, like 6 fewer minutes per game. And still putting up numbers on a historical pace, keeping track with guys who played notably, keeping track with guys who were playing notably more than what he was doing through that same realm of achievement. Therefore, it's his efficiency which really stands out. If you look at his offensive rebound percentage, 17.8% of available offensive rebounds he grabs this season. If he can nudge that up just a little bit, then he might crack the top 10 all time, like the top 10 seasons all time for offensive rebound percentage. Andre Drummond's 18.3%, 2014-15, is the only percentage better than what Steven Adams is doing this season, this millennium. And he probably won't get up to 18.3, but he might well get to 18s. He's not that far off. I think it's 18.0 is what he would need to match to get top 10. which can be arranged, just miss a few easy layups over the rest of the season, tally up those rebounds, take a leaf out of the Russell Westbrook book, the way that Russ used to become like a pass-only player when he needed assists in search of the triple-double record. Worked for him, worked for old mates. So, Steven Adams was a part of those teams. He might as well take a lesson from the main man there and pad a few stats and do something historical.
I'm sure the Grizzlies comrades would also do what Steven Adams did for Westbrook and helping Steven Adams get more stats as well, because they seem like a lovely bunch of chaps there in Memphis. My Steve-O stats this week for me, wildcard, bit of negativity, bit of down buzz, energy around the White Ferns. So I'm going to use the statistical segment, Steve-O stats, to share some positive White Ferns stats, a bit of aroha to the White Ferns here, specifically two White Ferns. The first is Francis Mackay, who has taken 8 wickets in this World Cup, which is tied with Amelia Kerr. Amelia Kerr, commonly known as one of the best spinners in the world. Francis Mackay has the same amount of wickets. Francis Mackay's wickets, 8 wickets at an average of 20. Amelia Kerr, 8 wickets at an average of 31. They are both behind Leah Tahuhu, who now has a bung hamstring. Interestingly for Francis Mackay, this takes her to 11 wickets in 2022. And she has played 6 years of international cricket, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, then 2021 and 2022. This is just ODI cricket. She has her previous best seasons were 2011, 5 wickets and an average of 19, and 2013, 5 wickets and an average of 25. So 2022 has seen Francis Mackay already play the most ODIs of any other year in her career so far, as well as taking the most wickets of any other year in her career so far as well. So Francis Mackay doing a good bit of easy bowling mahi. Shout out to Sophie Devine as well. Also fell victim to a back spaz versus England. En route, some would think, to a rather epic, to what would have been an epic knock at Eden Park. I think we all agree that if Sophie Devine didn't suffer an injury, sixes would have been raining at Eden Park. Unfortunately, she did have to leave the field injured, but she's having a fantastic World Cup. 2 really deep knocks, not as swashbuckling as she is in T20 cricket, but she still has a strike rate of 92. And this year, she has 409 runs at an average of 37. This is her best year of ODI batting since 2018. It is the first year she has scored over 2 scores, over 50 twice since 2018. And it's the most runs, highest average, highest strike rate as well since 2018. So big it up to Sophie Devine, big it up to Francis Mackay. Both are playing their best cricket when it mattered most. And all that really matters for the White Ferns is everything, all the bullshit, all the positive stuff prior to the World Cup, like the 2 to 3 years prior to the World Cup. A lot of players were absent. A lot of players had injury. A lot of players took breaks from the White Ferns. And it kind of helped crystallize in my mind that all that mattered was what these players did at the World Cup. Not every player's had fantastic World Cups, but in Francis Mackay and Sophie Devine, they have definitely stood up on the biggest stage at this World Cup, not only leading Aotearoa in various ways, but also delivering some of their best personal mahi of recent years, and in Francis Mackay's case, her whole career on the biggest stage when it was required the most and when it mattered the most. So shout out to them. Let's get deep in the mangroves here, Wildcard. Where are you off to?
Quick trip across to Tasman, I reckon, because there is one game left in the A-League women's season. small matter of the grand final. And time is ripe for reflection. The annoying thing about the ALW is that even in this expanded season with the Wellington Phoenix being a part of it, it's still only a 14-game regular season campaign. And it's not as professional as it should be. Always got these stories coming out now and then about players like working side hustles to support their football career and things like that. And I'm like, well, that's not like, they often present that as well as like, look what a committed, driven athlete this person is. And I'm thinking like, yeah, look what an exploited athlete this person is, that they don't make enough playing professional football, that they have to like work other jobs. Anyway, the great thing about the ALW is that it is a fantastic stepping stone league. Like it's not quite the league where you want to spend your whole career, but it's fantastic in terms of launching you into other competitions. You've seen that so many times recent years with, top Australian players moving to Europe. Plenty of Kiwi examples in there too. Like Abby Ursig used to take advantage of the timings between the American and Australian season, as many players do. Played a couple A-League campaigns early on in her career. Anna Green did the same thing, like Kirsty Yellop. Liv Chance last year came back, played 1 year season for Brisbane Roar, was excellent. Next thing, she's playing for Celtic. No doubt plenty more to come from the current crop too, of that current crop. So all up, New Zealanders made 234 appearances this season, with potentially a couple more to come, which shatters the 2012-13 record of 86 appearances by New Zealanders. Last year, there were 85. Of course, the Wellington Phoenix did have a lot to do with that, but even if you take the Phoenix out, then you're still at 82, probably rising to 84. Hannah Wilkinson led the way, 14 goals in 14 games, top scorer in the competition, did miss out on the regular season golden boots of Fiona Warts of Adelaide, who was one ahead but played 2 additional games, so had like a lower strike rate but more goals because she got to play more because Wilco missed 2 games for Football Ferns duty. Wilco did famously score 5 goals in 1 game, tying an A-League record, which Wards also tied later on in the season. Her 14 goals are more than any other Kiwi has scored in total in this competition, topping Emma Kete's career mark of 11 goals. Got Rebecca Stott alongside her, back from cancer, finding herself playing a more attacking role than ever for Melbourne City. Didn't get a goal or an assist, but I'm not entirely sure how she did, and with some of the chances that that she had and also that she created for others along the way. Definitely involved in a lot of moves deeper in those things as well. The game in which City was eliminated on the weekend, 3-1 loss in the sort of semi-final to Melbourne victory, was actually Stottie's 100th A-League appearance. Massive milestone. And to put that in context, no other New Zealander has even made it to 50 in this competition. Marissa Vandermeer also played for City, 10 games for them, mostly as a late sub, but 60 minutes in the extra time finals loss to Sydney was big. If she had played for the Wellington Phoenix, I think there's probably a good chance that she would have, had she not already had signed for Melbourne City when that team came along. She would have been their best fullback for sure. Liz Anton, regular for Perth Glory, 2nd year running, helping them to a few more wins this time around. She was always impressive. Malia Steinmetz at Western Sydney probably didn't get as much sort of prominence as she would have liked in a struggling team there. But, still another that got amongst it, her 2nd season. Don't even need to mention the Phoenix lasses, but in particular shout out to, Grace Jale, Kay Taylor, Mackenzie Barry, Alyssa Wynnum, all superb. And then we've got our 2 grand finalists on the weekend. It's Sydney FC versus Melbourne Victory for the 2nd year in a row, actually, and it's Paige Satchell versus Claudia Bunch. Satchell alternated between bench and starts for Sydney, but it was pretty impressive whenever she did play for a strong team. Actually scored the goal that clinched them the Premier's plate. Whereas Bunge held this Victory team, and in particular their defense, held it together through a bunch of early season injuries and suspensions and then some late season struggles as well. And she was just fantastic throughout. She had an absolute blinder against City in that elimination final, even scoring a 4th A-League goal as well in the mix, just before halftime. This Victory's 2nd goal to really sort of assert themselves. And she's looking to go back-to-back as champion after Victory beat Sydney at this stage last season. So we got this season's dominant team, the Premiers, Sydney FC, with Paige Satchell, against a team that has had their ups and downs throughout the season, but are defending champions and have timed their run perfectly to be peaking at this stage of the season. Melbourne Victory with Claudia Bunge. New Zealander in each team. Should be good.
Should be good indeed. Also might be good. Should be good. Probably will be good. Blackcaps versus Netherlands. coming up. We got one T20 game, I think, and then we got a couple of ODIs. First and most important, Twilight Taylor, last ODIs of his Aotearoa career. Remains to be seen what else Twilight Taylor entails. But we keep it present in the current moment, or still in the future with this ODI series. Enjoy a bit of Twilight Laturu Taylor representing Aotearoa in his best format. And also, it's one of those everyone else in class is away doing something else, and it's only like a couple of kids left in class, and that's when you have the most fun in class. Twilight Taylor, none of the IPL lads are there, so it's just like everyone else just gets to be part of this little Twilight Taylor celebration as well. So I think a couple of those fringy Blackcaps will be pretty chuffed that there's some that IPL thing is happening as well. Also, shout out to the Dutch. Got Max O'Dowd, Auckland cricketer. We got Logan van Beek, the Dutch freak. He is always representing Netherlands as well. Both of them have recently represented Netherlands, I think as recently as last year. They had some fixtures in Netherlands, maybe against Scotland and Ireland, and both of them were playing there as well. So both of those lads, hearty Kiwis, play a lot of cricket in Aotearoa, spend a lot of time in Aotearoa, and also really good Dutch cricketers as well. So they will be playing against Aotearoa Blackcaps in that series. Mentioned the IPL, their wildcard. Bunch of lads are going to be absent in the IPL. Most of us will know who they are. If you don't know who they are, who cares? Because the lads who are absent that I'm actually really interested in wildcard double down on the amplification of Blackcaps depth. So, of course, when you've got, 10, 11, 12 lads absent due to IPL cricket, that's a nod to the Blackcaps depth that they can also roll out a competitive squad. But these squads don't include some recent Blackcaps as well. Rachin Ravindra's not there. Tom Blundell's not there. Cole McConchie's not there. And the illustrious 12th man for the Christchurch Test Series against South Africa, Cameron Fletcher, is also absent. So Blundell and Fletcher are more the Test wicketkeepers who appear to be behind Dane Cleaver and Tom Blundell in the white ball stuff. So Aotearoa kind of has 4 wicketkeepers, not including the IPL lads, which to me feels fantastic. Cole McConchie, I think he hit a century in the recent round of Plunket Shield cricket, so big it up to him. He was in Bangladesh late last year, playing a bit of T20 cricket. And on a recent podcast wildcard, I'd thrown up the idea of Michael Bracewell being selected ahead of Rachin Ravindra as a batter who can also bowl spin and is just generally a good cricketer. Cole McConchie is the same style of cricketer. So Michael Bracewell kind of has commanded selection. He's had a really good summer. I view him as the best leader of men in Aotearoa cricket, especially the domestic cricket circuit. Obviously, we haven't really seen him captain a team at the higher level, so it's hard to say he's the best leader of all Aotearoa cricket. But what he does with Wellington every summer is fantastic. And he has now been selected ahead of Rachin Ravindra and Cole McConchie, both of whom were part of that Bangladesh tour. Rachin Ravindra also dabbled in a bit of test cricket against Bangladesh as well. Now, this isn't to suggest that anyone is better than anyone else, that Dane Cleaver is a better wicketkeeper than Tom Blundell and Cameron Fletcher, that Michael Bracewell is a better spinner than Rachin Ravindra or Cole McConchie. Similar to the Deine Mariner thing here, wildcard. This just tells us the story. It tells us the story of Aotearoa cricketing depth. When you can, we've got a whole team in the IPL. Aotearoa men have a whole cricket team in the IPL. They also have a cricketing team, a squad, preparing to play Netherlands. And off the top of my head, I came up with 4 other lads who have either recently played for Aotearoa or, in Fletcher's case, been called up to the test squad who will not be playing against Netherlands. And I'm curious, like, we don't need to dive into this, but I'm sure you can name 30 footballers for the All Whites. I'm sure you could probably hit 30 for the football ferns as well. Me being me, I can come up with 25 cricketers, not 25, maybe 18 to 20 female cricketers who are worthy of White Ferns selection. And this is the common thread across a lot of these sports. Even the rugby league stuff, like we'll see later this year, the World Cup, men's and women's, depth coming out of our you-know-what. All these sports have tremendous, wonderful, awesome depth. And we are going to see it front and center on display during this Blackcaps versus Netherlands series. And I'm excited because it's just a fun group of cricketers in the ODI and T20 international squad. It's not the best New Zealand cricket team, but it's a showcase of Aotearoa's depth and opportunities for various players to take on greater responsibilities. Ish Sodhi playing as the main spinner, Colin de Grandhomme coming off some hot form this summer, Tommy Latham. I mean, we all forget Tommy Latham's the wicketkeeper, also skipper. So shout out to the Blackcaps depth and shout out to all our Aotearoa sporting depth as well, because we are in a golden era, wildcard, a golden generation of Kiwi sporting glory. Question time. There's this March Madness thing going on, wildcard. And anytime I think about NCAA basketball, me, the link to yourself, being deep in the Aotearoa sporting mangroves, the first thing that comes to my mind are the Ledger Walker sisters. So I'm curious, what are the Ledger Walker sisters up to? It's March Madness. I assume that means it's the end of the NCAA season over in America. So A, what are they up to? B, how has their season gone excluding March Madness?
Yeah, so the overall season was excellent, like fantastic. They took the expected step up from last year's sort of breakout campaign, and they much better win. I think they were 19-10 overall in their sort of regular season things, and Charlisse Ledger Walker picking up a bunch of new accolades as she always does. I think she was shortlisted as one of the top second year players in all of women's college basketball in America. That was all awesome. That stuff was great. I mean, I almost hesitate to get into the postseason stuff because it was not so great. So their Pac-12 tournament, I think they got a 3rd seed, which is pretty massive because last year, I think the 2 finalists from the overall, not just the Pac-12 tournament, but the 2 finalists from the NCAA national tournament were both from the Pac-12. So they're in the toughest division in the entire country. And they got a 3rd seed there. So that just shows what an excellent regular season they had. But then unfortunately they lost their quarterfinals. So and the Ledger Walkers combined for, I think, 10 points together, which doesn't mean so much on Krystal's perspective because she doesn't have to be a scorer. She's there as just a lockdown defender, a facilitator, someone who will, pop a good jump shot if the opportunity arises, but not necessarily first thing up. But Charlisse obviously is meant to be their top scorer, and she kind of got shut down. The other team, Utah, I think it was, had just their own superstar defensive prospect who just guarded her out of the game pretty much, and they lost that one. They got blown out in the first quarter and just never quite came back. Which, okay, flush the dunny, move on, still got selected for the national tournament, 2nd year in a row, hadn't made it for 30 years, that program. Washington State had not been there for 30 years, made it 2 years in a row. last year they got bounced in the first round in a close game. This year they got bounced in the first round in a close game. It wasn't like it didn't end up as close as it should have been. They first half was really good. Like the first quarter, I think was only like 9-5 or something. They were up about 9-5, like no points involved, which is exactly how they wanted it. They wanted to. I forget who they played, but the team they played had a like a 6'6" center who was just like unstoppable. But they managed to slow. They kept it to like one field goal in the first half, and they were, I think, narrowly in front at that point. And feeling pretty good about themselves. Like they'd got the grit and grindy kind of match that they wanted. Unfortunately, their opponents made some adjustments, and it was Kansas State, I think it was. Kansas State, they're playing. Made some adjustments in the second half. The 6'6" center ended up getting 20 points and 15 rebounds. And Washington State did not score a field goal in the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. So it kind of, they didn't quite have the in-game adjustments to maintain what had initially been a good game plan, and went down in a close one. I mean, there's no such thing as like taking wins for granted in a national tournament. But it was a frustrating one because obviously, like they felt they were capable of they've been there 1 year. They thought next year, okay, we're not just here to compete, we're here to like win a game. Didn't happen. So Charlisse has got a couple more years of eligibility, so she'll get more opportunities. Krystal won't. This was already a bonus year for her because she should have graduated a year ago, but they made it so that everyone who was registered during COVID could have one extra bonus year just to make sure they didn't get ripped off. So she came back for her bonus year of eligibility to stack the team even further. Interesting to see what happens with her now, because I think for one thing she would probably not someone who's quite got the like dynamic stats that'll touch WNBA, but like she would cruise into a Australian professional roster, for example, where a lot of the best like tall ferns after college do go. So I'd say like at the very least that avenue is open to her, but we'll see what happens. As for Charlisse, it's just like, rest up for a few months, come back, do it all over again, try win a national tournament game next year, and see how it goes. She's got, she's only halfway through her college thing. You don't get to, unlike in the men's NCAA stuff, you don't get to just like say, 1 year was enough, I'm going to the NBA. Like you have to graduate in order to go to WNBA. So she's got to, do a couple more years of this. And continue to grow as a player and lead her team to very important victories. Future remains as bright as ever, but it was a bit of a disappointing season in the way that it ended up. Speaking of disappointing results, just thinking about that White Ferns World Cup. Calamity is too strong of a word for a team that lost 3 games by tiny margins, but the writing has been on the wall for a while, and anyone who's been reading your coverage of the White Ferns for a couple of years knew that. Unfortunately, New Zealand cricket might not have been paying attention, but I want to ask you here, what are the lessons that other national teams should take from this White Ferns World Cup experience? In particular, but not necessarily, the 2 women's teams as well who are hosting World Cups in the next year and a bit, the rugby and the football. Curious what they might want to think to avoid based on what the White Ferns have done leading the way.
Don't do dumb shit.
Good answer.
There's an equivalent Chris Vernon of the Mismatch podcast, Memphis Grizzlies person as well.
Stephen Adams fan.
He always says, "Don't play guys who suck," in relation to the NBA, and it's actually amazing like how NBA teams, their whole record changes when they, shorten their rotation and guys who suck don't play. And sometimes it's just that simple, where if you don't do dumb shit and if you don't play guys who suck, you're going to be a good team. Obviously, it's not quite that simple for a organizational matter, such as the White Ferns and with the football ferns and the Black Ferns. So I'll stretch it out further and I'll say, like, if you consistently make decisions solely on profit, solely on money, at some stage that will come back to bite you on the ass. You'll get some karma, you'll get some like spiritual guidance, or just some, if you keep making money-based decisions, you work up the bad juju where you end up with an issue. Alternatively, if you keep deciding to eat fast food, you're generating a lot of bad juju, and at some stage you will get a disease. At some stage you will get sick. At some stage something bad is going to happen because you have consistently made bad decisions and you've done dumb shit. Maybe you're the dude who's just always drinking. Every night you're drinking. You're using hard drugs. You're being a dick to everyone. Whatever it is, whatever poor decisions you make, if you do those consistently, at some point shit will hit the fan. And that's all that's happened with the White Ferns. So the advice, the learning, is just make good decisions. Just make smart decisions. And it doesn't, like, you don't need to be a rocket scientist in the White Ferns case to select the best players for New Zealand. There is an element of it, like, some of these bad decisions are like, nah, we're smarter. Nah, we want to be tricky here. We want to do this. We want to do that because this is happening, that's happening, and I'm a fucking cricketing genius, so I'm going to make it work. I'm the best. If you're operating from that mindset, that's where you generate the bad juju. That's where you generate the bad results and bad kind of cultural implications. Just keep it simple. Select the best players available. And then you can at least start to build. And the other thing is, like, try to like really win games, because that helps, apparently. That's the one thing I've learned about the White Ferns, is that unless you're really trying to, like, I can see how the football ferns are building to something. You know, we've discussed this quite a bit. The football ferns are building to something. Whereas the White Ferns were just trying to compete, and they kept losing, and they kept making bad decisions, bad selection decisions, bad contracting decisions, bad talent identification, like ignoring talent, picking the wrong talent. If anything, a more specific learning might be that you want as many experienced players as is possible in a squad. So sometimes you might have the freak talent. I don't know who this is for the football ferns. I don't know who it is for the Black Ferns, but yes, there is like young talent that is deserving of selection, and that's great. But if you've got young talent that is not deserving of selection, and by that I just mean they have commanded selection with their performances in the lower levels, then when you get into a World Cup stage, those players are simply unreliable because they haven't actually done anything at the lower levels. But if you have a group of players who have all performed over a number of years at the lower levels, they have climbed through the ranks, they have faced adversity, they have shown growth, and they have learned about themselves and their role, they are mature as people, as athletes. The more of those people you have, the grittier your team is. There's less weak spots. And even those weak spots, if you've got an experienced, gritty athlete in, like, who might not be scoring the runs or might be out of form, they're going to fucking try hard. And if they try hard with their experience, I think that's a fantastic recipe for success at a World Cup. Like, you look at a Blackcaps World Cup success, 2019. Who are the weird young players? They're not there. Everyone has been on the scene for a few years. Everyone has done their role for a few years. Everyone knows what it takes to get themselves ready to best perform for the team. 2011 is a long time ago, so I can't really think back to the All Blacks. But even 2015, like Grant Elliott, right? Like, you need the Grant Elliots. You need the Colin de Gronholms in the 2019 World Cup. You need those players assisting your star players. You don't necessarily want too many young players assisting your star players, but you definitely do not want young players who have played less than 20 games at the lower levels being relied on to assist your star players. That's how you lose. That's how you develop a losing mentality. So shout out to those gritty, experienced role players is probably a key learning as well.
And two White Ferns who you highlighted specifically earlier on in the podcast, Frankie Mackay and Sophie Devine, what do they have in common? They're also very experienced players who know exactly what they offer. And I actually think that's one of the most, because that was in that Ben Jones book as well. They're talking about England's World Cup win over, well, let's not call it a win, but their triumphant tie in that 2019 final. They were talking about analyzing past cricket World Cups and the things that, and I think this applies to pretty much every sport where there's a big tournament World Cup type thing. They highlighted 3 main factors that go into the successful teams. And one of them was experience. And you just think the opposite of not having experience is someone who's going to struggle in the big moment, who can't be, as you say, relied upon in the big moment because they haven't experienced it before. And they're going to feel that pressure more. And that's only natural because they haven't had that opportunity. It's one of the World Cup's big tournaments are just not the time to be picking your prodigies who are not commanding selection based on existing performance. Don't think about prospects. You think about maybe an 18-year-old is good enough to be picked because they're just burning the house down with the stats. Fair enough. That's on merit. On potential, that is not the time to do that. We'll see how that goes with the football ferns, actually, because I think less so the Black Ferns, but I do think the football ferns have had a tendency to do that in the past, when at a time where there wasn't a Phoenix team, wasn't football ferns development. So, little things like that maybe, hopefully they've put steps in to create that gap, but they have had to sort of artificially do that in the way that the White Ferns have here. So it's a lesson they probably could directly learn. I think that one's extremely applicable there.
2 teams playing today, South Africa and Australia. Super grisly, super gritty. They've been around for years, especially South Africa. They've been really good over the last 3 to 4 years, came to New Zealand, smoked New Zealand 3-0, and they've just kept the same group. So that's a learning. Also, don't do dumb shit and don't be too cool. The White Ferns coaches, decision makers, bit of a too cool vibe. Now we're too cool to follow the recipe, so we're going to come up with our own recipe. Well, your own recipe sucks. So what's if you just follow common sense sporting logic to give your team the best chance of success? Don't be too cool. Musical Jam Wildcard. Couple of Wahine that I want to shout out here. I'm learning. So I'm not too sure. I don't know a whole lot about Sandy Mill, but I did find her a remix track, I think, for a song Socials, and I put it in the Sounds of Aotearoa thing live on the website. And if you search Sandy Mill topic on YouTube, there's a couple of soulful jams as well. And then she's got some remixes and other jams on the Sandy Mill topic channel. So she's just got funky jams, soulful singing and just cool, vibrant music. Shout out Sandy Mill, M-I-L-L, as well as Tikahu, who's got a new song, Waikato. She is also known as Thea, Theia. But when she's doing Te Reo Waiatas, she performs as Tikahu, and her latest song, Waikato, is a sultry waiata. Beautiful jam, beautiful Aotearoa music as well. It's just, why would you go elsewhere, Wildcard? But I'm sure you have gone elsewhere.
I have, but I'll bring it back around. Quite like this album by American artist Morgan Wade, who's sort of outlaw country style singer-songwriter stuff, a little bit of Sturgill mixed with Casey kind of thing. That one's quite good. It's like a deluxe edition of an album that came out last year that I didn't listen to at the time. Nilufer Yanya's album Painless, don't actually know how to pronounce her name properly, but the album is quality. That's a good one. And then bringing it back home, I did really enjoy that NT Honey single as well that came out last week, Moon Ritual. Released to coincide with the full moon late last week. So there you go. One of the growing lists, because NT Honey had an album, I can't remember what it was called, something to do with like punk something, or I can't remember. But an album that came out a year or two ago that was pretty cool. And I liked that, and I liked the single even more. Sort of part of a growing kind of list or a growing wave of just excellent Kiwi like indie rock guitar music types, but DIY fashion and true local tradition, and yeah, digging it.
But a soulful Wahine Wyatters and the guitar music. Can't go wrong with a bit of guitar music.
I think we picked we highlighted 5 artists there, all women as well. So there you go.
Well, let's double down on that. So we got Tikahu, otherwise known as Thea, Sandy Mill as well. Who are your artists?
Overseas, Morgan Wade and Nilufer Yanya, and then local NT Honey.
Well, I thought you said we've got 5 female artists from Aotearoa. So we've got 3
right, just men in total, but let's chuck in Aldous Harding for fun as well and fill it out. 4. She's got an album coming out soon. And I don't know, Nadia Reid or something, or it's a long list if we wanted to.
So we got Tikahu, we got Thea, we got Aldous Harding. Who are the other 2?
NT Honey, Nadia Reid.
Boom. Variety show, multi-order, raise your mana, raise your vibration. What's if you just fucking be nice to someone? Just be nice to each other. Love Aotearoa, love yourself. We'll be back with a niche cast on Thursday. Stay beautiful. Chit.